Тебя зовут.
Иннокентий.
Иди. Бестрепетно.
Зачем?
А зачем моей семье родственник убийца? Нет человека и нет проблем.
Твоей семье. А их куда?
В морг. Попытаются выяснить фамилии. Родственникам передадут. Тогда остается Платон.
Я что, схожу с ума?
Успокойся.
Успокойся. Кто?
Зачем на Воронина томилась? Ты!
А я рабочий! Что теперь делать, ты мне скажешь, а? Ты о них подумал? Что ты молчишь?
Забудься о них, а я за все отвечу.
In an underground tunnel in Russia, 13 frozen people were discovered. They had been frozen since 1929. Almost all of them suffered varying degrees of brain necrosis, but one man of unknown identity managed to survive. Who is this man? And why was he frozen for an entire century? Without further ado, let's start the story from the very beginning. In 2026, molecular biology professor Konstantin and his wife Nastia, a high-level researcher, found a mysterious hidden chamber in an underground tunnel beneath a monastery. They broke the lock, entered, and found several frozen people lying inside. A careful count revealed a total of 13 people. The two immediately transferred these frozen subjects to a private laboratory near St. Petersburg. After a preliminary screening, the couple found the frozen man with the best brain cell condition. Moreover, unlike the other subjects, this person had no identification number. Konstantin thawed the man who had been sleeping for a century. Although his physical indicators were normal, he remained in a coma. He and Nastia couldn't watch over the man 24/7, so they decided to go for a drink to relax. Their financial backer was very happy because once the frozen man regained consciousness, the laboratory would achieve an unprecedented breakthrough. The group held a party on the roof of a mansion and played until they were exhausted before going home to rest. Little did they know that the man lying in the laboratory had already awakened from his slumber. The instruments kept sounding alarms, and the staff on duty rushed in and immediately notified Konstantin. The couple arrived at the scene as soon as possible, and the benefactor also rushed to the laboratory by private jet. However, because the frozen man had just been thawed, his brain's neural connections had not yet fully recovered, and his memory was in a state of extreme confusion. Fragmented images kept surfacing. The frozen man saw his younger self watching an aircraft test flight ceremony with his family. The pilot flew the plane across the sky, but suddenly the fuselage malfunctioned and thick smoke billowed out. Despite the pilot's best efforts to save it, the plane crashed into the ground. People watching rushed forward. During a moment of frantic struggling, Innocenti, fell out of the sleeping chamber. Fortunately, he soon regained his calm and remembered his name, Innocenti. Nastia told him, "We found you in a monastery in the White Sea, but more than 100 years ago, that place was a prisoner camp." This meant that Inno had likely served time in the camp. Nastia is a top psychologist in the country, so she would personally accompany Inno for rehabilitation training to get his brain working again. Inno was still stuck in the Soviet era and knew nothing about modern life in Russia. He vaguely remembered his happy childhood and a very close brother. His parents always wanted him to be a pilot, which is why they took him to see the flight activities. Inno looked at the scenery outside the window and remembered that he spent his childhood in this place. But a century ago, it wasn't called Rapino, it was called Koker. Nastia comforted Inno, telling him not to worry, and gave him a laptop where he could find any information he wanted. However, learning how to use the internet would be a long journey. Meanwhile, almost all the other frozen people failed to thaw. They were wrapped in black plastic bags and prepared to be moved out of the lab. Konstantin told Inno, "I have good news. We checked the information of prisoners in Solovetsky in 1929 and found that between 1925 and 1929, only 4 people named Innocenti appeared there." Konstantin read out the 4 surnames for Inno to identify, but he had no impression of the first 3. Inno immediately remembered that Platonov was his surname. Moreover, when he grew up, he did become a pilot and studied aviation design at school, being a student of the aircraft designer Zhukovsky. The Soviet Union in 1929 was at a critical turning point. the end of the new economic policy, and the full launch of Stalin-style industrialization and agricultural collectivization. The entire country's economy, society, and politics were undergoing drastic changes. Countless young people wanted to go into politics, but Inno was fully devoted to designing airplanes. He couldn't remember more for now. Because Inno had studied aviation design, he had an extraordinary talent for drawing, and learning computers was effortless for him. In addition to this basic brain recovery training, Inno gradually started physical activities. After all, lying down for over 100 years had made his limbs stiff. During this time, Nastia stayed by his side, and this woman made Inno feel strangely familiar. A century ago, there seemed to have been a girl like Nastia by his side. Inno slowly remembered his first meeting with Tasia. That day, he was carrying the wings he designed and wanted to jump off the academy's rooftop. Unexpectedly, he ran into Tasia. The girl asked him who he was, perhaps an angel? Inno froze in place, unable to answer anything. Back to the present, Nastia was very happy that Inno's memory was slowly returning, so she suggested he keep a memory diary. He could use writing or drawing to record whatever came to mind. One day, Inno drew the goddess Themis in his notebook because he had seen this statue in a nearby room as a child. The goddess holds a scale in her left hand and a sword in her right, symbolizing law, order, and justice. Inno's memories were interrupted by Konstantin, who asked if he had any impression of the name Bulyubashev. He was a very special biologist who specialized in cryopreservation and often froze small animals. Once, Bulyubashev successfully revived a monkey, which gave people hope. If the same thing could be achieved in humans, they might be able to extend life and conquer death. Therefore, Bulyubashev was no longer satisfied with animals and began experimenting on humans. But such unethical human experiments could only be carried out secretly on the Solovetsky Islands. Thus, the Lazarus Laboratory was built on the island in 1929. A few years later, a massive landslide occurred deep in the Sekernaya Mountains, sealing all entrances to the lab. Fortunately, there had been a secret tunnel since the monastery's creation. Bulyubashev mentioned this in his diary, which is why Konstantin went there to try his luck and unexpectedly found Inno's group of frozen people. According to sparse archives from the monastery, Inno was imprisoned in the camp on suspicion of murder, but the specific details were not recorded. He really wanted to know who he had killed, so he asked Nastia to take him back to see where he used to live. Arriving at his former house indeed triggered more memories. His father had been beaten to death by a drunk porter years ago, so Inno had lived with his mother since reaching adulthood. One late night, he returned home and met his mother's acquaintance, the Varnin family, who had come to stay temporarily. Tasia, Asia, was the daughter of this couple. In addition to the three members of the Varnin family, the brother Shivo from Inno's memory also lived in this large family. However, he was not Inno's biological brother but the child of his aunt. The aunts had adopted him after his mother passed away. Shivo was a fanatical revolutionary, completely different from Inno. Inno never participated in these topics. He just quietly helped Tasia with housework. He mustered the courage to invite the girl out for a walk, only to be interrupted by a drunken neighbor, Old Ko. This man worked in a sausage factory and was uneducated. Old Ko said he had a gift for the new neighbor and then reached into his pants. It turned out he had stolen some sausages from the factory and, fearing he would be caught at the gate, stuffed them in his crotch. No one had ever seen such crude behavior, and their impression of Old Ko was very poor, especially Mr. Varnin. Seeing things weren't right, Inno and his mother quickly asked Old Ko to leave. Inno only treated this as a minor incident and did not realize that Old Ko's appearance would change his life. At that time, his relationship with Tasia was heating up. Only Shivo knew about it and supported them. The scene shifts back to the present. Inno, looking at a child having trouble in front of a car, couldn't help but ask Nastia if she and Konstantin had children. Inno noticed it was getting late. If he remembered correctly, Tasia's birthday was coming up. So Inno wanted to go to Yolanin Island, where there were many memories of Tasia. They often avoided everyone to row a boat together and dream of the future. And Nastia might just be a descendant of Tasia. Because as soon as they arrived at this place, Nastia was quickly immersed in it, as if she could feel that unforgettable love. Just as she was about to lose her reason and kiss Inno, she was interrupted by the roar of a plane. Nastia hurried back to the lab. Her phone was full of messages from Konstantin. It turned out today was Nastia's birthday, and Konstantin had prepared lunch, but Nastia only appeared after everyone had fallen asleep. The sharp Konstantin noticed his wife was distracted. He irritably approached the benefactor, saying he wanted to quit. The people who failed to thaw used the same cryoprotectant as Inno. Konstantin still couldn't find the reason why others failed while Inno succeeded. Initially, he thought the answer was hidden in Inno's memory, but the other man's recovery was slow. If this continued, his wife would run away before Inno recovered his memory. Konstantin knew Nastia really wanted children, but he couldn't fulfill that wish. And even a blind person could see the sparks between Nastia and Inno. The benefactor advised Konstantin not to overthink. Just help Inno recover his memory as soon as possible to end this relationship. Using his superpowers, influence/wealth, the benefactor found the plane Inno helped design and the materials left by the Design Institute at the time. He felt that if they repaired the plane and let Inno fly it again, he might remember more things. Inno reached into the cockpit to grope around and actually found a small cloth bag. Inside was a necklace with Tasia's photo, a birthday gift Inno had given her. The benefactor said he had one more question for Inno. The film company under his name was shooting a historical movie about the last century. No one understood the past better than Inno, so the benefactor asked for his opinion. Unexpectedly, the familiar scene triggered new memories again. Back in the past, Mr. Varnon was searched because he was suspected of being a counter-revolutionary. The couple was taken away by the police. Tasia fell ill due to worrying about her parents. To find out the details, Inno quickly went to ask Shivo, who was a soldier. Fortunately, Tasia knew nothing about her parents' affairs, so she wasn't involved. Inno grabbed Shivo and asked, "Was it you who reported them? Didn't you have a fight with Varnon before because of different political views?" Unexpectedly, Shivo backhanded Inno, claiming he would never betray a family friend. Shivo guessed that it must have been the neighbor Old Ko who, harboring a grudge, reported Varnon to the police for being hostile to communism. Now there was no turning back for Varnon's arrest. Shivo warned Inno not to do anything stupid. However, Tasia's health deteriorated day by day. Her lungs had been bad since birth, and she was even more despondent after her parents were arrested. After learning of this tragedy, Nastia couldn't help but hug Inno to comfort him. The benefactor saw all this but lied to Konstantin. "My people have been watching them. Nothing happened between them. You just need to focus on finding the missing ingredient of the cryoprotectant." Konstantin believed it and spent day and night in the lab studying Bulyubashev's notes. He finally found the answer to the problem in a formula on a page stained with ink. He immediately called the benefactor. The benefactor wept with joy upon hearing this because he had a genetic disease and would become a living dead in about half a year. Current technology was not enough to cure this strange disease, but if he could freeze his body first and then organize a team of experts to continue research, he would have a chance to be cured when a method was found. On the other side, Nastia didn't know her husband had made a breakthrough and stayed by Inno's side, continuing to listen to his story with Tasia. Back then, to take care of his sick beloved, Inno would rush home no matter how busy he was. However, one day when he returned home, he saw Old Ko and the unconscious Tasia lying in the same place, with wine and sausage on the table. He quickly pulled Old Ko up and demanded to know why he touched Tasia. The drunk Old Ko immediately explained, "Tasia had a high fever. Your mother went to buy medicine and asked me to help take care of the patient." Old Ko grabbed a sausage from the table and threw it hard at Inno. During their struggle, Old Ko was pushed hard against the table. He fell to the ground and stopped moving. He actually died just like that. After Shivo found out, he arrived immediately. Tasia tried to stop Inno, but Shivo prevented her. She could only watch her lover go to surrender. Before going to the police station, Inno went to the school studio and hid the necklace in the airplane. Back to the present, he showed Nastia the photo inside and said, "You and Tasia are exactly the same. I think that's why I woke up again. Because I promised Tasia I would never leave her." So even after 100 years, Inno met Nastia. Hearing this, Nastia could no longer suppress the throbbing in her heart and threw herself into Inno's arms. The two were lost in each other, forgetting the world, effectively greening Konstantin, betraying him. Konstantin tried calling his wife for a long time but couldn't reach her. He had to go to Inno's place to find her. However, the two had already left. Only a necklace was left on the table, with the woman on it looking exactly like Nastia. An ominous feeling surged in his heart. Konstantin found a woman's hair nearby. Intuition told him it belonged to Nastia. His wife had likely betrayed him. At the same time, Inno and Nastia strolled through the streets. Seeing the plane was about to be repaired, Nastia wanted to know when he would depart for the test flight. Just then, a group of Asian tourists passed by on a boat. Inno actually saw Shivo in the crowd. Images of being imprisoned in the camp flooded his mind. He saw that it was Shivo who put the mask on him. Could it be that Inno's involvement in the freezing experiment was actually related to Shivo? Memories of being taken into the monastery gradually resurfaced. Inno was extremely weak due to the long journey, and Shivo happened to be the military officer in charge of them. The two pretended not to know each other in front of outsiders. After Shivo called Inno into the office, Inno quickly asked how his mother and Tasia were doing. I wrote to them but never received a reply. To his surprise, Shivo said unceremoniously, I told them you caught typhus during transport and died long ago. It turned out Shivo had always been jealous of Inno. Why did he have a mother who loved him so much and a beautiful, gentle girlfriend? Shivo really couldn't swallow this resentment, so he deliberately instigated old Ko to report Varnin. He knew Inno wouldn't let it go. As long as this obstacle was removed, Shivo could have everything Inno had. Out of their past friendship, Shivo wanted Inno to die with dignity, so he let him participate in Bulyubashev's experiment. Shivo approached Bulyubashev and warned him, I'm not discussing this with you, this is an order. Because one person was added last minute, the process of freezing Inno was different from the previous 12 people. In addition to xenon, ethylene glycol was also used. Although this component is toxic, xenon can eliminate its toxicity. When the two components are combined, they actually produced a very strong toxicity. Because Inno remembered the truth of being betrayed by Shivo, he found it difficult to accept for a while. And Nastia was even more inseparable from him, wishing she could stay by his side 24 hours a day. Konstantin watched the two from behind and turned to tell the benefactor, I won't help you freeze. I know you lied to me, saying nothing was happening between Nastia and Inno. But I'm not refusing to freeze you because of these personal matters. Look at Inno's fate after being frozen. He will forever be bound by the past. If you are also frozen for hundreds of years and that disease still cannot be cured, wouldn't you die alone after being abandoned by the whole world? The next day, Konstantin would pack up and leave. He could give up all the discovery and honor regarding the cryoprotectant formula. Then, Konstantin told Nastia he wanted to live alone for a while. The two could separate and calm down before deciding the future of their relationship. On the other side, Inno's plane was finally assembled. The day after tomorrow, he would go to Moscow to make a public appearance. After being provided for by the benefactor for so long, Inno couldn't refuse his request. In addition, Nastia helped Inno find news of Tasia. She passed away during the blockade, and Shivo also died early of pneumonia. Inno no longer had any relatives in the world. At the same time, to celebrate getting the formula, the benefactor held a party by the sea. No one expected that in the middle of a dance, he would suddenly pass away. Because of this accident, Konstantin prepared to completely destroy the cryoprotectant formula. Since Nastia was also a participant in the experiment, Konstantin called her to take action together. On the way, Nastia hesitated as if she had something difficult to say. Konstantin was affected by her and almost hit an oncoming truck. He turned the steering wheel sharply and stopped the car, throwing the notebook with the formula into the water. Nastia finally mustered the courage to speak. Upon hearing her, Konstantin didn't get angry but asked Nastia if she was willing to go home with him. To them, Inno's appearance was like a dream that made Nastia lose her way for a moment. But she is not the real Tasia and must have a day to wake up. The scene shifts to a sunny afternoon. Inno piloted the repaired plane and soared into the sky. This test flight, delayed by a century, meant that he would finally break free from the past and welcome a new life. The movie uses the sci-fi trope of cryogenic revival as a shadow to show the heavy echo of historical trauma through the perspective of pilot Inno's rebirth, touching on core themes of technological ethics and identity. However, the depth of the cryogenic revival setting in the film is regrettable. Whether the second life of the revived person has complete human rights and what the attitude of 2020 society is toward revived people are questions that could have improved the depth, but they were simplified by the director into background settings, focusing instead on the protagonist's personal grievances and redemption. This caused the potential of the sci-fi setting to not be fully released. Furthermore, the motivation for the 1929 laboratory is very vaguely explained, and some plot logic lacks continuity, making it easy for the audience to feel a gap in understanding, resulting in the emotional landing of the video being insufficiently concentrated and difficult for viewers to have deep resonance.